Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold and Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alistair Gold. Ali, you well?
I am, thanks. Hope you are too. I'm very much back on UK time now. I am adjusted back to this side of the world. We had a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium match to go to as well, with 61,000 or so people there. I don't know why, but I was quite surprised at just how packed out it was. And yeah, loads to talk about, and even more events kind of spilling into today as well that we can chat about.
Yeah, we are going to reflect on Saturday's 3-2 defeat against Bayern Munich at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But before that, some news coming out of Spurs today, and certainly some good news for the club and all Tottenham fans, and that's Mikey Moore, who has signed his first professional contract with the club. I think we can all agree, really, really good news for the player and the club.
Yeah, there was that really nervy stage, wasn't there, because what happened was last year he agreed to stay at the club despite loads of interest from all the top clubs in the Premier League, across Europe as well. But he kind of agreed to stay on scholarship terms, agreed to the next professional deal, but you don't actually sign that until you turn 17. So there was this nervy little period over the last month or so where it was a bit like, there's Dortmund was sniffing around, other clubs as well. It's a bit like, okay, we still need you to sit down, young man, and sign that piece of paper, so don't go anywhere else. And to be fair to Spurs and Postecoglou, they've really shown him how much they kind of rate him and how much they want him to be a part of this team going forward. He's got quite a lot of minutes. Manor Solomon's barely kicked a ball in some of the games because Mikey Moore's been coming on ahead of him. And bearing in mind, he was only 16 at that point as well. He's already got 2 Premier League appearances to his name. So I think Spurs have done everything to show him, you don't have to go elsewhere. You're at the club that, I think he's been at since he was 7. It was either 7 or 9. I can't remember now, but he's been there, I say a long time, relatively for him a long time. For the rest of us, because he's so young, probably not so long. But yeah, it's great news. He's a fabulous talent. He's still so young, got so long to go still. And we know with young players, career trajectories are funny things. Anything can happen. But all he can do is what he can control, really, which is just to continue to work as hard as he is. He's impressed everyone. Even just watching him against Bayern at the weekend, just some of the little turns and things he did for a 16-year-old up against some of these top players in European football. Not phased by, being smashed into by João Palhinha late on as well. If anything, everyone else took umbrage at that, whereas he just kind of shook it off a little bit. Then I think it was more he kind of went head to head with Kingsley Coman after that as well, and it was just it was all he's a very mature young man, as you could tell by the interview. Have you listened to his interview?
No, not yet. I'll listen to that after the pod.
I really recommend it. For someone that's just turned 17, it's very impressive. Me at that age you would not have got that many words out of me. It's a terrific little interview, just talking about how he expects so much more from himself and he thrives on the pressure of playing in front of the big crowds and everything. So yeah, terrific. But like I say, still very early days, but definitely a very exciting young player.
Yeah, I think we'll see quite a bit of him this season. I think it's going to be quite tricky for Postecoglou in terms of naming a matchday squad, especially going into next Monday's game against Leicester, because you can only name 9 substitutes. And how many have we seen on the bench in pre-season so far? About 14 or 15. The squad's been huge. So yeah, I think Mikey Moore's certainly going to give him a decision to make. I think what's going to help is the addition of European football to the schedule this year. You're allowed the big squad in Europe, so I'm sure we'll see plenty of him. And you know what, Andrew was speaking about him at the pre-match press conference on Friday, and just basically praising him and saying it's about Tottenham now creating the best possible environment to make sure he can, become the best footballer he can be. And I think he's going to be given those minutes on the pitch. I think he's featured in all pre-season games so far. I mean, you mentioned Solomon a couple of minutes ago. Has he not featured in the past 2 or 3?
I think so. And the good thing for Mikey Moore, he's just showed his versatility, because he's not really a right winger. It's not a role he's played a lot, but it shows the faith Postecoglou's got in him that he's actually playing him there instead of Manor Solomon. And yeah, he has been keeping him out of the team.
Yeah, so yeah, it's going to be really interesting season for Mikey Moore and Spurs, and I think we'll see plenty of him. And I think a lot more, fans in the Premier League and Premier League clubs will start to know a bit more about him, because if he keeps going the way he is, then he can certainly be a star, because he's got all the attributes in his locker, and we've seen that already when he's been coming through the system at Spurs. Something else Tottenham fans speaking about today, Yves Bissouma and a certain post on one of his social media channels. What's happened then, Ali?
Oh, it's just, you talk there, you just mentioned the exact phrase which was perfectly kind of leading into this about Postecoglou and wanting to create this perfect environment within the club. And yeah, I mean, Mikey Moore has his 17th birthday on Sunday. Sure, he had a lovely day, whatever he was doing. And then later on in the evening would have settled down, maybe looking at his phone, as we all do, and would have seen headlines, not so great headlines, about Yves Bissouma. Yeah, uploading clips of himself on social media. I think it was Snapchat, appearing to inhale nitrous oxide from balloons and things like that, which actually, I think since last year, possession of that's been made illegal. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So yeah, it's just, I mean, to be honest, I'll read out his statement. It's probably the best way. He put quite quickly a short statement out. I want to apologize for these videos. This was a severe lack of judgment. I understand how serious this is and the health risks involved, and I also take my responsibility as a footballer and role model very seriously. Spurs are looking into it. Internal matter, as it were, as they always are with these things with clubs. But it's just, Postecoglou must be seeing all of that and just thinking, what was the point in the chat we had last year? He had this big chat with Yves Bissouma about how he wanted him to be a real role model for these young players in the club. And that's why only reason I mentioned Mikey Moore is because someone like Mikey Moore and a lot of these young players, I spoke to Lucas Bergvall on the tour, and he said about how much he looks up to Bissouma and loves playing alongside him and trying to learn from him. And all these young players are now looking at him and he's doing daft stuff like that, and it's just, he's 28 this month, and it's just incredibly daft. And yeah, Postecoglou had that big chat with him, admitted the next day Bissouma turned up late, which they had another chat about that after, and continuing to try and be a role model. And it's just not been a great pre-season for me for Bissouma. He hasn't played more than 45 minutes yet in any game. He's had little moments where he's looked like his old self, like the goal against, was it QPR, I think it was a lovely goal. Even the start against Bayern on Saturday, I thought he looked really bright, and then just faded like really dramatically out of the game. So, of all the things to be uploading on a weekend after a game when you've again only played 45 minutes, I just can't understand the logic behind any of it. And it's really, really stupid, because I thought Bentancur again looked really sharp on his return. I thought he looked good. I thought Archie Gray is definitely one they're kind of grooming for the long term, perhaps for that number 6 role. And he's got lots. I think I would imagine, if I'm not mistaken, he's got quite a bit more minutes than Bissouma has this preseason. So for me, any player who's like that kind of top player or top professional player right now will be thinking, I've got to be at my very best. I've got to be at my peak. I've got to be doing everything I can to ensure that come Monday night at the King Power Stadium, I'm starting that match for Tottenham Hotspur. Because Bissouma, in his top form, is the player you build that midfield around. He can make that Postecoglou system work so well, but when he's off of it, it all kind of falls apart. And yeah, it's just incredibly disappointing. It's the club will be so disappointed. Postecoglou will be so disappointed. It's now a topic he's going to have to talk about at his press conference on Thursday. It's just so unnecessary and so, like I say, daft for someone that is meant to be one of your most experienced players in your group. And, it was the challenge set to him last year by Postecoglou. And when you have incidents like this, it's kind of failed. He hasn't reached those kind of heights that he's meant to.
I don't even know why you'd record it anyway, let alone post it on social media, especially
Or,
as a
or do it,
professional
or
athlete.
do it in the first place as a professional. Like, you know, you look at people like Harry Kane, they like treat their bodies like utter temples, don't they? The very best players do that, and it's just it's mad.
Yeah, and I think that probably a few weeks ago you were looking at the starting midfield at Leicester, probably as Bissouma, Sarr, and Maddison. And let's be honest, you could probably make a case for an entirely different midfield. So I don't think all three have had the best of pre-seasons. I think Bissouma's got a massive fight on his hand for a place in the team because he was an undroppable, really. I'd say under Ange last season. I think there was only maybe a couple of games when he didn't start, and one of those was coming straight back from AFCON, I think in February time. And you've got Archie Gray, who's had a really strong pre-season. Rodrigo Bentancur can play as a number 6 as well. So, yeah, I think Bissouma's got a lot of work to do to make himself that undroppable in the team once again. Right, let's move on to Saturday's 3-2 defeat against Bayern Munich. Certainly an entertaining game, to say the least. Spurs scoring after, 24 seconds through Dane Kulusevski. Then Bayern turned the game on its head. 3 goals before half-time. First one, Upamecano scored. Then it was Serge Gnabry and Thomas Muller. Dane Kulusevski scored again after the break, but Spurs just couldn't get the third goal. Really, really impressive start from Spurs. Really good work from Kulusevski as well. Just that persistent play to get the ball off Kim Min-jae. Worked it well with Brennan Johnson. Maybe not the best of balls across from Johnson, but ball fell luckily into the path of Kulusevski, who for me I think has been Tottenham's best player of pre-season by some distance as well, and they finished it really well. But then, I mean, you're looking at the goals Spurs conceded, and not good ones at all.
No, it was a weird game again. It very much felt like a mishmash kind of friendly team that was put out, and that's understandable with the players returning from international duty. You knew they were kind of likely to only get 45 minutes or so. So yeah, I was just looking back to seeing the lineup for the pre-season friendly against Shakhtar, which it's a more balanced team. Is probably the best way to look at it. You know, there's a few players in there. Can you remember who started in central defence?
Sanchez?
No. Good shout, but no. I think he was on the bench. Yes, he was on the bench.
Who was it then?
It was Romero and Davies. It was Emerson, Romero, Davies, and Udogie, and Vicario behind them. So obviously it was like just a few days later Van der Ven joined, didn't he? So yes, it's slightly kind of you've still got Ben Davies in the centre back positions, but it probably was a more balanced defence that day. It was probably more of a settled back line. If I'm going to give them any kind of anything to cling on to for the first half defending on Saturday, you know, you've got a doggy in there, whereas you had Jed Spence playing on the left. I do feel a bit sorry for Jed Spence in terms of he's kind of got this redemption chance, and it's like, yeah, it's great, and then they're shoving him on the left where it doesn't quite work for him. There's some nice moments going forward, but defensively, he's leaving quite a few gaps behind him, and it's so much more difficult for a right footer to kind of deal with a winger going down that side if you're not used to kind of it. And the other thing I was just going to say about the Shakhtar game was obviously they had a very good striker up front in Harry Kane. They had a natural striker, as it were. You remember the midfield? Another little tester for you. I'll give you a clue. 2 of the players that started on Saturday that started that day.
Maddison and Bissouma.
No.
Sarr
and Maddison, and he's no longer at the club.
I don't know.
Danish.
Pierre. It's Pierre.
Yes.
So much has changed over the past 12 months in terms of getting players out of the squad. So, yeah, that's a bit of a tricky one, that.
Yeah, well, 3 of that starting lineup. If we say Emerson's gone, as he is, looking like he's going to complete his move today to Milan. Yeah, Emerson, Højbjerg, and Kane, right through kind of almost the spine of the team, have gone, and most of the bench. The bench is probably the one that's got a fair few people having left: Sanchez, Perisic, Dier. Actually, that's it, because there's a few others that Lo Celso and Reguilón also there and not quite gone yet at that point. Although I'm talking rubbish. Lo Celso obviously stayed. Yeah, the defending was not good. Set pieces again, not good. They looked like a back line that wasn't particularly that used to playing alongside each other. Set pieces defending was just weird at times. Like the third goal when Muller scored, it was like they were set up to defend a direct free kick. They'd put loads in the wall. Someone was lying behind the wall, and then Bayern just clearly went, nah, we're just going to knock it into the box. And they were like, oh no. And they suddenly, like, Kulusevski's got like 2 people at the back post, managed to mark neither of them. And I looked back as well for the, would have been the first goal, wouldn't it? Upamecano shrugs off Brennan Johnson so easily. And Brennan Johnson like falls on the floor, and then Upamecano's just completely on his own to tap in after Vicario saves. Yeah, just the marking was dreadful. It still appears to be the zonal kind of marking. They were just they were in like a big line rather than actually marking people. But what I would say, if I'm going to offer some kind of defense for the defense, is that makeshift back line, first half concede 3 goals. Second half, it's more like it's 3 of the back 4 you're likely to see against Leicester. If he doesn't use Dragishin. That was my only wonder, whether he might use Dragishin, but I'd imagine it'll be the back 4 that we've so used to seeing. But that 3 of the back 4 with Archie Gray, who I thought played really well as a right back, they didn't concede much at all really at the back. Admittedly, Bayern made some changes as well, but still I did feel they looked a lot more organised. And we know that Van der Ven makes the system work with his pace as well. But yeah, set pieces a legitimate concern still, you think?
Oh, massively. That's like the last thing Tottenham fans wanted to see, on the eve of the new season. And on the day when the club signed Dominic Solanke from Bournemouth, then a lot of Spurs fans were saying next signing, it's got to be a set piece coach. But Ange's made that perfectly clear before. That's not going to happen. It's not the way he works. I mean, for me, it was an experienced defence out there still, even though the likes of Romero, Van der Ven aren't in there. It's not like they plucked 4 people from the crowd to make up the back line or whatever. But in terms of the set pieces, I think what was alarming for me was there was always 2 spare at the back post. And it's like, why is that happening? I think for the third one, a lot were probably maybe expecting Kimmich to swing it in rather than Guerrero.
Yeah.
But even still, I mean, for the third one, Muller just peels around Kulusevski way too easily. And could Vicario maybe have done better with that? Because
range.
I know it's close range and there's power on it, but he does get a touch on. So maybe he feels personally he could have maybe done slightly better with it.
Could he have done better on the first one when he kind of palms it across? I feel like that was probably a reaction save, if anything.
Yeah, I think it was just the reaction save, and then it's just Upamecano reacting quicker than Dragishin to put it in. But again,
and what about the second one?
Just honestly, just cut that stuff out.
You say that, but that's the foundation of how they build around the press, isn't it? It's the midfielder comes deep and switches it quickly out to the flank. I know it's becoming predictable, but it is going to be one of the passes they always look for.
I know, but for me, it's too risky doing stuff like that, because you can concede from that, and then 1 goal can decide a game, and I don't like that at all. For me, it's just too much of a risk. And yeah, I mean, the goal they conceded in the first game against Bayern was poor, and this was just
very similar, wasn't
really.
It? Was just
pretty much carbon copy. And fair play to Serge Gnabry, really, really good finish. But yeah, I just like goalkeepers just get the ball upfield. Just don't take a chance in your own box, but it's something all clubs, a lot of teams are doing now. It's just, the latest fad, and I'm sure it'll change at some point in the future, but it's just too risky.
Yeah, interestingly, in the warm-up, he was hitting long kicks, Vicario. I was watching it. Rob Birch was getting him to do lots of long kicking, and in the actual game, maybe that was preparing him for having the outlet of Solanke or Richarlison in the weeks ahead. I don't know why you'd warm up in a game where you've got Kulusevski who doesn't do that. It's one of those where I know there's going to be frustrations about it, and I know, quite rightly, like you say, it's not something a lot of people like to see, and it's quite scary to watch at times when they play it out from the back. But it's going to be the Postecoglou way. He's not going to change that aspect. If anything, I would say they need to be able to mix up the different ways of playing out from the back, because it is becoming a little bit predictable that someone, whether it be one of the three midfielders or one of the fullbacks who's inverted, will come and claim the ball in the centre of the pitch and try and spin it out to the whoever's out in the wide areas. If you're just going to do that, the top teams like Bayern, and even just any team nowadays that can analyse an opposition, is going to say, right, okay, we need a man on watch for that man who's going to make that run, because he's going to go, if you can get a foot on it, we're suddenly turning over the ball in the final third. So they've got to be clever about it and the way they do it. But I don't think we're going to see a Postecoglou side suddenly become a long ball team anytime soon. It's going to be played out from the back. It's going to be scary, but the better they get at it, the more it's going to beat the press, and they are going to get chances against these teams that they've had problems with in the past.
I've seen so many teams try play it out from the back and then end up, booting it long anyway, and then losing it there. So it's, why just cut that stuff out in and around your own box, because it's dangerous unless you've got the players who are really good on the ball, who are confident on it and can switch it. But yeah, it's 2 games in a row. It can't happen for a third game now.
No.
You just can't.
Same with the set pieces. That's 2 different themes where they've lost the ball or they're making defensive mistakes. Those 2 themes have to stop pretty soon. Otherwise, they dominate the narrative. That becomes what we keep looking for, and it weighs on the players' minds as well.
Yeah, if you're going to concede goals like that, get them out of the way in pre-season, not during the season. But let's wait and see. It might be a talking point next Tuesday after the Leicester game.
Not.
Right, second half then we saw the introduction of Lucas Bergvall. Rather eventful game for him, because again had a big impact in the final third, got his first assist at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and then I've no idea what happened in the second half when he went to ground. It was almost like he was struggling to catch his breath. So I don't know. Some have saying maybe if he had some chewing gum, did he swallow that? Did he swallow a fly? I don't know, but he was on the ground for quite a while with the medical team, having quite a bit of water, taking that on board. But, thankfully he could carry on, and then just carried on from where he left off.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a very odd moment, and his teammates were quite concerned. They suddenly called over the physios. I asked Ange about it afterwards, and he was like, "Yeah, we're not entirely sure, kind of what," or he wasn't entirely sure about what it was. He said that we were trying to find out. He was struggling to breathe, and we were trying to find out if he'd swallowed something. Yeah, it didn't look good at all at one point. He was really on all fours, struggling. We couldn't tell whether he was being sick or whether he was just really trying to catch any air he could. Thankfully, whatever it was, just vanished. And because Alfie Devine was getting ready to come on, he was stripped and ready to come on, and then it just suddenly changed, and he was fine after a lot of coughing and taking on a lot of fluid. And good for him, really. Well, in the obvious way, but also in terms of his football stuff, because he went on and played really well. Did you think after that?
Yeah, really, really well. I think if I'm James Maddison, I'm a bit worried for my place in the team at the moment, because I don't think Maddison's done enough in pre-season. I thought he was good in the Hearts game. The first game of the summer looked more like his old self, but I didn't really think he did enough on the pre-season tour of Japan and South Korea. And the same goes for last weekend's game against Bayern. But I mean, he's not the only one. Bissouma's not really done much. Brendan Johnson struggled at times, not really been in the game. But yeah, I mean, I said probably a couple of months ago after the signing of Bergvall that it'll take quite a bit of time for him, to get up to speed. But, he looks like he's up to speed already. I mean, he's going to be a bit different in Premier League games, but I think coming up against Bayern and when you're playing against midfielders like Kimmich and Polina in the middle of the park, then that's only going to serve him well going forward. Thought he was fantastic in the first game against Bayern, and he came on and made the big impacts against Bayern once again. And that assist, lovely pass through to Kulusevski. And I mean, as good as the pass was, the finish was as impressive. Took it really well.
Yeah, I think these have been, despite the disappointment in these Bayern games, obviously losing, it's not the biggest thing in a friendly, but the manner of some of the goals conceded, I do think it's been a really important back-to-back double bill, as it were, for Lucas Bergvall, because he's come from, yes, when he was young, he was the star of all the youth tournaments he was playing against these massive sides. But in terms of senior football, obviously, it's the Allsvenskan. That's what he's been used to, and Swedish football. So, yes, the pace and physicality of the Premier League will be different. However, throwing him in against these big sides, and like you say, the big midfielders that he's up against and all of that, and watching him take his game onto the next level as well to match that is going to be hugely encouraging, I think, for the staff. And, you're spot on. The players you've mentioned there, Maddison and Bissouma and Johnson, what I don't think maybe they've quite realised is these young players come into this squad now are good. Whether that's, like we were saying, Mikey Moore and Manor Solomon maybe not quite realising the threat suddenly that Mikey Moore poses to him. And also maybe to Brennan Johnson as well, if he keeps going in the way he's going. And certainly Kulusevski's form, when you've got a striker there, Kulusevski's going into the right wing slot. He will be. He told me on tour he's just going to have to adapt if that's where he plays. But in the centre of the pitch, Bergvall right now, he's pushing towards starting ahead of Maddison. I don't think fitness-wise he's there yet. I think Ange said that as well. They really need to work on his fitness. That's understandable. It's very different to what he's been used to. But he's definitely pushing there, and Maddison's just not done enough for me at all. Like you say, little brief glimpses of what we know he can do. And the same as we were saying with Bissouma, you've got Archie Gray now. Postecoglou will have no hesitation in using these players, even though they're 18, because he'll think they're good enough. And this is the thing with Postecoglou. He got a little bit of criticism last season for maybe not using some young players at times when we kind of all wanted him to. But I think in his mind, he just maybe didn't feel they were ready. And I think he looks at players like Gray, Bergvall, and Mikey Moore and thinks they're ready for this level. They can play at this level. I'll have no qualms. If you're not a senior player and you're not up to the speed where we need you to be at, you're going to be watching on as these players take your spot. And that's part of competition. That's what it's meant to do. There'll be more players coming in. There'll be a couple more transfers, I'd imagine, as well, at least. And that's going to put even more pressure on the underperforming senior players. Of all the summers to have come in and not absolutely smashed it, this is not the one to do it in, because Postecoglou's got real hopes for this season. He needed a lot of players to come in and be at their very best from the off, and it may be that they switch it on when the actual season starts. It could be, but if I'm Maddison, I'm looking at Lucas Bergvall, I'd be worried. I would, because I think he's been excellent.
Do you think he'd drop him for Leicester? Drop Maddison? I mean, this is like, I don't know, does he just go for the experienced players, first game of the season, to, hopefully get 3 points on the board? And after all, I mean, this is Maddison's Leicester homecoming. He'll be looking to make a big impression if he starts. But then at the same time, sentiment just goes totally out the window. You pick who you think is the best players for the game. And I don't think it's certainly cut and dry that Maddison's a definite to start. Bergvall certainly made his case. It's a big decision.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one. The first game of the season is slightly different because there's also a fitness element to it. And that's why sometimes you see lineups that maybe don't excite the fans quite as much. And that is often because of the fitness side of it. I was just trying to look back at the first game at Brentford, and I've got a funny feeling that I don't know if I can get the team lineups now. I can't, of course. But I'm pretty sure, didn't it have wasn't Emerson playing at right back? I think Skip was ahead of Sarr. I feel like I remember that.
I think it was Skip, Sarr, and Maddison. I think was it Kulusevski, Richarlison, Son. Emerson was at right back, Doggy left back, Romero, Van der Ven, Vicario.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you can see that the first lineup's going to be slightly different. Would I drop Maddison? Yeah, it's a difficult one. If you're going on pre-season form, probably. But if you're going on experience and fitness and going into a big game against his former club as well, away from home, he's going to be having, you shouldn't, but naturally there's going to be that little added kind of motivation to his performance as well. So I probably wouldn't on this occasion. But if Bergvall comes in, makes his Premier League debut during the game and impresses, and Maddison doesn't, then he's got to be wary that he'll take his spot quite quickly.
Yep, plenty more to discuss on the Bayern game. But first, time to talk about the benefits of using NordVPN. And I'm sure you put NordVPN to good use last week when you were away.
Are you talking about the tour or my couple of days off after the tour?
Oh, either. I mean, it's always coming useful for you.
Yes, I mostly on the tour I was using. I didn't need it too much because I was just essentially sat around a lake, looking at water really, rather than my phone. I was trying to decompress until Spurs kind of, I say ruined it, but it was great. Obviously, got into kind of active business mode on the Friday and signed, or certainly got the Solanke move through to its final stages. But on tour, absolutely use NordVPN. I can pinpoint an exact moment because we were in the stadium and we weren't getting, you didn't have desktop replays of the game, of the moments in the game. So I was trying to get Spurs play up so that I could watch that and see what I'd maybe just missed, little moments and things. And my phone was going, no, you're on the other side of the world. We're not giving you Spurs play. So I flipped on NordVPN and bang, there you go. Spurs play was working perfectly. This is not an advert for Spurs play. I should stress. This is extolling the virtues of NordVPN, which allowed me to access everything on my phone that I normally would be in the UK. And it was massively helpful. I used it for a few other things as well when I wanted to watch any shows and films in my downtime that I had I wanted to watch on various streaming services. So I say it enough times, NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world and means there's no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. Wouldn't be pushing it if it wasn't something that I do use quite a lot in life. It's very, very helpful. It's also helpful to a degree from a security aspect when you're signing up to public Wi-Fi that might not be as secure with things that you've got on your device. It's been a terrific service for me, and that's why I'm always kind of praising it to the hilt. And to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link, that special link, will give you 4 extra months on your 2-year plan. And there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. In case you missed that link, the URL, it's in the podcast episode description box.
Let's talk about Rodrigo Bentancur now. First appearance for Tottenham in pre-season as he's been playing away in the Copa America. Got 45 minutes in the tank against Bayern, and I thought it was very good. Really good use of the ball. That he certainly made a case to start against Leicester. I know he's only just returned from his summer break, but it's not like he's a player who's not played at all. And these were his first minutes in pre-season against Bayern because featured regularly for Uruguay in the Copa America. So I don't think there's any questions in regards to his fitness. And, for me, I think he is Tottenham's best midfielder on his day when he's at it. And I mean, I think that was clear to see prior to his ACL injury. Started the 22-23 season, the amount of, big moments he contributed. We've not really seen those since, but I think we've both said on the pod that 24-25, this is going to be the season where you see Bentancur getting back towards his best. And I'd start him over Bissouma, personally. I think it was a really good showing, and I think having, another a week until the game, it's not like Spurs are playing on Saturday, so there's a couple more training days in there, and yeah, for me, he starts.
I think the key for these three players who are likely to, play a big part in Romero, Van der Ven, and Bentancur, I don't think you lose too much sharpness with just like say 3 weeks or so after the tournament, because you've been doing so much training, so much football. Really, even Van der Ven, I know he didn't get loads of minutes, but he would have been training every day with the Netherlands team. So I don't think they'll have lost a lot, and I think it is just very much. I think Postecoglou even said it after the game. It's like a topping up phase now. These next 9 days, week or so, and maybe I think I'd probably agree. I probably would start Bentancur at this point. Let's be honest, we've been kind of talking about him for different reasons over the summer. It's really nice to be talking about him in a really positive aspect. He looked really sharp, looked very good on the ball. I really hope this is now him beyond that post kind of long-term injury stage, and that he's able to show his best, because he's a bit of a double threat for those players around him, in that he could take Bissouma's place, but he could equally take Maddison's or Sarr's place as well. This is the problem for especially Maddison. I mean, Maddison really has got to be not only looking out for Bergvall, but he's got to be looking over his shoulder at Bentancur, also Kulusevski. It may be that we're talking about Brendan Johnson. It may be that Postecoglou wants to use his pace in the game as the natural kind of right-sided player, and that may mean that Kulusevski comes in instead of Maddison. There's so many options there now in the midfield, which, it's the key thing, really. I still think perhaps another option to come in there as well. I was really impressed with Bentancur. He really caught the eye. I felt he looked like a player wanting to prove a point, and say, I am sharp, I'm back, because he didn't really start a lot of games. Did he start maybe one for Uruguay in the Copper? I'm trying to remember.
I think 1 or 2. There was quite a number of times.
Injured, wasn't it? He started that one.
Yeah, and I think he started the following game.
Oh, yes,
Canada, was it?
Third
he
place
scored.
match.
Yeah, he scored. Yeah. And did he might have started one maybe in the groups,
which maybe shows he was starting to get fitter and sharper by the end of the tournament as well. So yeah, I would be very tempted to start him at the King Power Stadium, unless Bissouma. It's a difficult one as well, because there's an element of, do you have to, it sounds so archaic, but do you have to punish Bissouma in a way for what's kind of occurred this weekend and what's happened, to just kind of show him you can't do something like that, set a bad example for the rest of the squad, and then you play the next game? I don't know. Again, that's a question for Postecoglou probably more than us, but what would your midfield 3 be if you would decide right now? What would your 3 be to face Leicester?
Bentancur. I mean, you could say, I know you said Bissouma, you could potentially punish him, but let's be honest, he's probably played himself out of the team if he's not going to be in absolutely. It. Bentancur, Sarr, I think, and then maybe Kulusevski instead of Maddison, and then have Johnson on the wing just for the pace. And I think Johnson will probably benefit from having a natural striker in the box as well. I think that's only going to help his game. I think maybe that's the 3. I think probably Bergvall on the bench to start with. But the way he's going, you can see Ange turning to him and giving him an opportunity in the second half. But I think the good thing is there's options there. There's plenty of choice.
Yeah, I think Archie Gray will be running them close as well.
Yeah,
I don't know whether the first game will be a stretch. It'll be too soon, but I equally wouldn't be shocked if he's in the lineup. I wouldn't be stunned at that. I would probably imagine Bentancur, Maddison, and Sarr would probably be the 3 I think he'll start with. But a week's a long time. A lot can happen in these training sessions. A lot of people can push themselves forward. A lot of people can look fitter than the others. What's just great is that having everyone fit makes such a difference, and that bench is going to be so strong, like you say. There's going to be we're going to have so many discussions, and the fans are going to have so many arguments on social media about who should be starting, and that's how it should be, rather than, oh my goodness, who are we going to play in that position because no one's available. It's going to be hopefully very different this season, and but it's a lot of games, so it's going to still test that.
Yeah, I mean, this is what like City and Liverpool have had over the past few years. Just you want your managers to have a selection headache and to be leaving players out of the squad, because you need the best possible squad if you want to compete at the top of the Premier League and for major honours. And I think when you're looking at Tottenham squad now, it does look really strong. Probably just a couple more additions, a bit more fine tuning in terms of some players heading out of the door, but they're certainly getting there. And maybe not enough has been made of what Spurs have done in terms of outgoings over the past, year, because you've seen the players on the fringe of the team, such as Sanchez, Dier, Højbjerg, they've all gone. Obviously, not being able to get rid of Brian Hill on a permanent basis, but there's another loan move for him. Same for Elijah Veliz. So yeah, in terms of the squad, Spurs are certainly getting there. So Benteke, not the only international back in the team. Van der Ven, Christian Romero. Romero certainly made himself known, didn't he? Within like a minute of being back on the pitch, I think was it a young lad up front for Bayern, which basically like straight into him, giving him a couple of pushes. And good to see Destiny Doggy back on the pitch, because we've not seen him on the pitch in pre-season. Ange said in his pre-match press conference he's had a good 2-week block of training, didn't start but came on, and just good to see him, involved in an attacking sense again, because he was constantly looking to make things happen in the final third.
Yeah, the balance is so much better when a dog is on the left. It's just natural because of his ability and the fact he's left-footed. And yeah, they've been quite careful with him over the last 2 weeks because he hasn't played. He hasn't kicked a competitive ball in. I don't know if you can you have a competitive ball? I really want to be kicked. He hasn't played a competitive match since April, so they've been careful. They could have probably used him in the first Bayern game, and I think they just thought, no, let's just give him another week or so of training first. And yeah, he looked good. With him, it's going to be about fitness. We had a good chat with him on the tour, and he's looking to have a big second season. I think we forget that as well. It's like it was his first season. He was like nominated as one of the potential young players of the season in the Premier League. I think he'll have a big second season if he can kind of steer clear of injuries. Romero, there's no such thing as a friendly for Romero. He doesn't do friendlies. Came in and was immediately kind of showing. Because I think what I hope with Romero this season is that he's kind of done it. He's not quite, but he's almost like completed football from an international perspective. He's won the World Cup, won the Copa America twice, won the Finalissimo as well.
Yep.
So he's kind of done all that, and he's got people saying I think he was voted the best player at the Copa America. Ozzy Ardiles was telling me as well. I haven't been able to fact check that, but I am not one to doubt Ozzy Ardiles. Messi's calling him the best centre back in the world. He's being linked with the likes of Real Madrid and stuff like that. But I still don't think he kind of has that credit. He gets that credit in the Premier League as being like one of the top defenders. So I would really love to see this season him kind of really stamp his mark on the Premier League. Not literally, don't stamp on anyone, but make that case for himself at a club level and a league level as well. Kind of, we know how good he can be, but I don't think fans of other clubs really rate him. I think they still see him as this kind of hothead that steams into challenges and things like that. So yeah, I think it could be a really big season for him. I thought that was really well timed, the comments he came out with ahead of the game as well, about looking to stay at Spurs, not looking at any transfer speculation, really wanting to have a big kind of season for Tottenham, I thought, and win things for them. I thought that was good. I'd love to see players come out. I know it's just words and things can change, but I do think it makes a difference to kind of the mood around a player and also the club as well, especially when one of your vice captains comes out and says that. And I thought of the two. Van der Ven was probably a little quieter, had that shot that went over the bar, but Romero was putting himself about and steamed up the pitch with Bentancur late on as well to stick up for Moore and Lancashire when they were getting themselves into a little bit of bother. I love to see that as well. It's what you want from your vice captain. You want them to be there protecting the young players, don't you?
Yeah. Do you think he was sticking up, or was it just a case of I want to get involved in this?
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. As vice captain, I think they're looking out for those teenagers. I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Coman, Kingsley Coman. I've never seen someone backpedal so quickly. It's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not dealing with you.
Yeah. Another big talking point from Saturday's game, the homecoming of Harry Kane and Eric Dier. I think a nice moment for both of them. Got really good reception. Both got a commemorative gift from Ledley King as well. You think they got a voucher maybe for the F1 or the Skywalk, a discount as well?
Yeah, no, I think it was a free trip on the Skywalk, I think, and you can do the abseiling. No, I know what it was. It was a replica of the Golden Cockerel on top of the South Stand, which itself is a replica of the one that was on top of White Hart Lane. It was a very short presentation. I kind of felt that bit. I must admit, I was thinking like, I know we were going to get kind of extra moments, kind of Kane moments, but I was a bit like, all right, that's it, is it? It was like really quick. It was like, didn't even kind of, I thought maybe, I don't know if you do a little pre-match kind of thing or not, whether you like Paul Coyte would put the microphone to him or not, but it was over very quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, Dier got 45 minutes in the second half. Kane came on for the last 10 or 15 minutes. I think he had one attempt on goal, what went over, but after the game, I think Kane pretty much did a lap of honour, didn't he? Basically saying his goodbyes, and I think he pretty much did that anyway for the Shakhtar game. I can remember him at the time because there was all those question marks: will he go, won't he go? And then he did go around, and I think that was pretty much the answer. Then that he might be on his way, and that's what actually happened. And I think a lot of will have seen on social media a bit of a moment after the game because there was a trophy for the Visit Malta Cup. I think was it Kimmich maybe wanting Kane to hold it aloft, and he turned it down, and I think that just probably shows the class of the man. Doesn't want to maybe antagonise Tottenham fans by doing that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Kane had the armband by that point, so he was the man that should have lifted the trophy. And yeah, if you've seen the clip, you'll have seen him repeatedly saying no. And I think it's just what it symbolised, isn't it? It's lifting a trophy at your old club, at a club that's been starved of silverware. You weren't able to win it with them, and then you go straight back there in your first game and you hold a trophy aloft in front of them. It would have looked rubbish. You can imagine lots of people enjoying that moment on social media from rival clubs or Twitter accounts or whatever. And yeah, it was spot on. It was very switched on and very classy is probably the best way of putting it. The walk around the stadium was cool, and then when he came on as well, it was quite a nice moment. It was 10 minutes to go, and you could hear the noise as the crowd were kind of realizing he was about to come on. And in amongst all of that, he looks across and sees Will Lancashire about to come on alongside him. Obviously, 19-year-old academy player that obviously everyone hopes, even if he has a fraction of Kane's career, that would be wonderful. And I think Kane just looked across at him, and amid all the noise and when he would have been focused on coming on, he just turned to him, shouted across to him, and did like a high five, kind of, not a high five, like those kind of handshakes in the air things that people do. And I just thought it was a nice little moment. I noticed Will Lancashire's social media has had like a lot. He's put photos of that moment up. I think he loved. It was a nice moment for him, and I think he asked for Kane's shirt after the game as well. And yeah, it's lovely for him. And wouldn't it be brilliant if in, I don't know, a couple of years' time, we're looking back on that moment and seeing that as like a little changing of the guard? That would be lovely. And oh yeah, do you remember when Will Lancashire was stood next to him and they were both coming on? That would be great. It might not work that way for him. We've seen that with strikers. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit, but even like Dane Scarlett couldn't even make the bench on Saturday. So yeah, he's still got a long way to go. But I thought in terms of Kane, it was nice to properly have that closure, that farewell. Must admit, kind of glad he didn't score in a couple of chances. I was like, I don't really want you to rub in the fact that you were such a brilliant goal scorer, but it was good to see him back. And he did a good little interview in the mix zone afterwards, talking about how strange it was to be back. He talked about Solanke, and yeah, just coming back and seeing a lot of the faces and familiar faces he's have seen. And no one will want Spurs to do so. No one will as much want Spurs to do well this season as Harry Kane. He will want them to go on and win trophies and everything, regardless of whether he's there or not. Because let's be honest, he's going to win trophies at Bayern. Of course he is. Last season was a bit of a freak season. This year he's going to get a major trophy of some kind. And yeah,
the Visit Malta Cup.
It's not the Visit Malta Cup. Yeah, I don't think that's the one, probably. Spurs have won their trophies this summer as well. They won the, was it the J-League Challenge, I think they got? Was that the one that Richarlison was going around in his, holding it in the motorised cart? But yeah, it's all about the big stuff to play for. But it was a good day to kind of Harry Kane to say goodbye and people to say goodbye to him.
And one player who was saying hello to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, that was Dominic Solanke, joining in a big money move from Bournemouth. Myself and Wilma, we spoke about Solanke in the last pod, so we'll just get your thoughts first of all on the signing.
Oh, it's a terrific signing. Honestly, it's I know why some people might be underwhelmed by it, because they'll look at it at face value and say, oh, Spurs are shopping at Bournemouth and all this sort of stuff, and we want player from top clubs or whatever. I really would kind of suggest looking at the way he plays, even just looking at his goals last season and the amount of goals that are Postecoglou style goals that he scored as well. And Postecoglou was really strong in him after the game, essentially saying, he's someone I wanted. He's the one I wanted for a long time up front. And it hasn't happened as quickly as he would have liked. You can tell that. Bournemouth did their best to try and keep Solanke. They did not want to let him go. Obviously, there was this release clause, but as we always say, it's very rare that a club come in and pay the entire full whack up front to trigger a release clause. Some release clauses, you can kind of get around it with different deals. I think Archie Gray's was like that. I think you could, as long as the selling club, in that case Leeds, recognised that monetarily the package was worthy of the same amount. So in that case, it was Roden plus whatever it was, 25 million or so. Whereas it doesn't always work. Some release clauses are very kind of like all the money up front. That's how it's got to be. And not a lot of clubs do pay that. You'll often see, even like the ones like Man United that are spending massive money. We've seen them this summer negotiating deals that are either beneath the release clause or actually a little bit more than release clause, but in better payment terms, installments, things like that. So yeah, it's all the financial stuff that we really don't want to concern ourselves with. But it does play a part, and it frees you up to then, I guess, put money into other areas too. But I got their man, and Solanke, I think, is absolutely kind of desperate for this chance. He's really, really ready for this. And two things I think about it that we often maybe criticise Spurs for, and I think you kind of have to give it to them on this occasion. They've spent what will be in total £65 million. It's 55 in the main deal, another 10 in add-ons. So they haven't gone for a cheap option. They haven't just looked and they could have looked for a cheap option like probably Ivan Toney, I think, is going to go eventually somewhere for cheaper than that. But they didn't go for that. They looked for a younger player who they feel Postecoglou feels fits better in his eyes. And they also haven't signed a young player who potentially could be good in the future. They've signed someone who's going to be, I think, 27 next month, probably starting to hit his prime as a striker, as we saw last season as well. And the good thing I think about Solanke is that he's had chances at bigger clubs in the past, Chelsea and Liverpool. He's got that burning desire to prove that he can be at that level. So he's not going to feel like at Spurs, like, oh, what is all of this? I'm used to much smaller things. He's experienced. And I'll still people still keep kind of coming out with this. He's had one good season. He scored 72 goals across the last 4 seasons. He's not just like wandered in last season and realised how to be a striker. It's just the one before that. He had a bit of a quieter season when Bournemouth first came up, really. That was what it was, as they were all adjusting to the Premier League. And obviously, when he was in the Premier League before, he was a young player, and he wasn't the finished product that he kind of... He's not a finished product now, but he's closer to the finished product. So, yeah, I keep telling people this. You and I have discussed Solanke in the past, but as being a really good fit. So we're not just suddenly saying, oh, Spurs are signing him, he's great, now he's terrific. We've said it in the past consistently that he will fit everything about this Postecoglou system. And it's not even just the goals, it's his physical ability. He's one of those who leads the league in terms of turnovers in the final third, his pressing, his fitness. He's got a turn of pace. If you watch some of his goals, there was obviously the compilations are always fun to watch. Someone put out like a 8, 9, 10-minute compilation the other day, which also showed some of his work in the final third and what he does. He is spot on what Postecoglou wants in a striker, but he's also a big lad and good in the air. And we've said this before. I know it's not the major reason why you bring a striker in, but like with Richarlison and Kane, it's going to be handy for defending set pieces as well. It's another big player to put back there. That might in itself help that issue. It's not going to solve it entirely, but it's going to be a one kind of factor that will help. I'm really excited to see how he fits in and how I think he's going to fit in. And if he can stay fit, I think he's getting above 20 Premier League goals this season in this system with the amount of chances they'll create for him. You know, the amount of times like Son, Werner, Johnson and Kulusevski are going to put balls in for him in that box, whether it's the low ones across the 6-yard box, whether it's the high balls. We've seen him score some lovely headers as well last season. He's going to absolutely gobble them up. And I love the fact that he's also got Richarlison has very clearly kind of made his case that he's sticking around. They're going to push each other because Richarlison played very well, I felt, when he was fit and available last season. Shock horror. Spurs have actually got competition up front and a bit of depth there as well. And there'll be different games where he'll use either one or the other. And actually, it might not drop. The level might not drop, which is exactly what you want. And it sounds like he should be fit to start against Leicester as well, which is a massive thing as well. Chuck him straight in there if he's fit enough. I mean, he got 64 minutes in the previous friendly he played in. Obviously, he had a little knock, so he couldn't play in the last one. But I think with these 8 or so days of training he would have got starting yesterday, he'll be ready for Leicester.
Yeah, I think Ange's expectation is, these new signings can hit the ground running. That his belief basically is if the recruitment's right, the players can, have an instant impact, hit the ground running. And I think it's a good signing. I think especially when you look at all the things he can offer, everything Ange wants, really. I think maybe it's a bit of a, like a Moneyball signing in terms of the data's everything you want. Might not be the big name signing fans want, but he's got everything that can make him a hit at the club. For me, I think, and as well as a number of fans, probably the main talking point is the transfer fee, because it is an awful lot of money. And maybe 12 months ago, what could you've got Solanke for? 25, 30 million, maybe. Yeah. I think it probably just shows the power of the fact that he's had such a good season at Bournemouth.
And he's a homegrown player.
Yeah.
That's such a kind of commodity, isn't it, in the market?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the homegrown numbers, then
I knew as soon as I said that, or the door I'd opened.
I mean, I was going to lead into it anyway. I mean, we've only got a couple of minutes left of this recording. If you can manage to basically sum it up,
what?
But the Spurs are going to have some issues in terms of the homegrown, non-homegrown numbers when it comes to Premier League and Europa League squad, as the rules do slightly differ. You were crunching the numbers late on Saturday night or early Sunday morning. Basically, there's going to be a bit of movement there.
Yeah, my head hurts, honestly. Just even now, just thinking about it again. I apologize in advance. We have to bring this up every year because Spurs never seem to actually sort it out properly. It is a case of definitely not having the quality coming through their academy as well, in terms of the club-trained players. In essence, to try and sum it up as quickly as I can, Premier League squad, they'll be fine. Premier League squad is absolutely okay. I think they'll have a couple of spots there, especially Lo Celso and Reguilón we expect to head off. they'll have room there to bring in a couple of players, and it won't be a problem. The main difference between the Premier League squad and the European squad, which is the real pain in the backside, is that in your Premier League squad, players under 21, you can shove in this other list and they don't even have to be counted. So Lucas Bergvall, Archie Gray, they come in, they go in as 18-year-olds into this other under 21s list. You don't have to worry about them. You can register other senior players, lovely stuff. Premier League squad, put that to one side now. The absolute, like I say, pain in the backside is the Europa League squad, which it will be for this season. That is completely different. Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall have to be counted as senior players. They haven't done the required amount of years to fit in the B list. I think it's only 2. Is it only 2 years, I think, for the European one rather than 3?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it is. So you've got that. You've got this other added element that's another awkward thing of having to have at least 4 association trained players and 4 club trained players. Club trained players, this is where Spurs have stuffed themselves, because you've had Tanganga and Parrott have gone this summer already. They only have 1 senior outfield club trained player at the club, and that's Oliver Skipp, which is mad. Technically, you could probably put Max Robson in that category, but let's be honest, with no disrespect, Max Robson is just not. He's not part of the first team squad. He's not. He did got some minutes. Was it QPR? He got some minutes in pre-season. It was either QPR or Hearts.
It was Hearts away. Yeah.
So, but he is not kind of part of that squad. You never know; it could end up going down that route. But at the moment, he isn't. So you've got Austin, Whiteman, and Skipp. The issue is there. You have to have 4, or I think you can leave a space, or you just bring someone up from like the younger players, like a Donnelly or a Lancashire, I guess, to fit in that spot. But you're kind of wasting a spot because they're already an under 21 player in the B list, the academy players. But then also, in a weird way, you're penalised by having Spurs have got too many, not too many, but they've got quite a lot of association trained players now with Solanke joining. I think it's 9. I think it is. If I've got that right. Yeah, I think Solanke makes it 9 because they've lost Sessegnon Road and Parrott and Tanganga have all gone. Actually, let me just double check. It might be 8. I just want to get this right because
I think it was 9. You had
was
on
it
your
9?
list. I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We'll stick with 9 then. Yes, it is. No, I've got 8. I've got 8. Interestingly, I don't know why that would be different to the other one, but there you go. Anyway, the key thing is there's too many players for the squad. They're going to have to get rid of some if they want to, because they can only do a squad of 25 players. So they're going to have to get rid of some players who are not going to be able to be registered. And we were talking about this before. Obviously, Lo Celso and Reguilon will go, but it still means that the way I've worked it out, they would still need to lose another 2 players from their Europa League squad before they could even. That's it. That's just to get without leaving anyone out of it. If you want to sign someone and put them in Europa League squad, they would have to get rid of 3 and then 4 and so on. So we were thinking about it. Maybe Manor Solomon misses out. And maybe they look for a move for him because it hasn't quite worked for him this summer. We were both saying maybe Fraser Forster doesn't get registered in Europe and you stick with Vicario, Austin and Whiteman. That could be one way of doing it. Another way, which is a different way of doing it, is you looked for a former player like Marcus Edwards or Carl Walker-Peters. You try to bring them in and that ticks the club train box. Or maybe you do let Jed Spence still go off and do something elsewhere, and have Porro and Gray as your right backs. There's ways of kind of getting around it. It's a bit of a nightmare for Oliver Skipp, who desperately needs football, but clearly, I think it'd be really difficult for Spurs to let him go. I think it would look bad, especially that they have no senior club trained players able to put in that group. As we've said, yes, you could put a young player from the academy into those spots, but you're just wasting a place because they'd already be registered anyway. Yeah, it's a mess, isn't it, really? I mean, I'm going to do an article later properly diving into it. Pat Matasal, we've explained before, does not count as a homegrown player. It didn't quite work for him in that respect. And it's all a bit chaotic. So I'm probably going to ask Postecoglou about it on Thursday as well. That European squad right now is the one where he's going to have some real difficult decisions to make, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't go and sign like a Marcus Edwards or a Kyle Walker-Peters for the sake of it. I think you can get
it's
away
not a great
with,
look, is it?
No, I think you can get away with maybe having, a 23 or a 24-man squad, whatever it is, because there's a lot of, your under 21 players there. I think if, Mikey Moore, Will Lancashire, Jamie Donnelly, players like that continue to progress at the current rate, then Spurs aren't going to have this problem a couple of years down the line. And I think we're probably both wanting a couple of years down the line to come around pretty quick, so we don't have to ever write or talk about this subject ever again.
So much. But they still can't sign people and put them in that squad regardless. That's the issue, I think.
Yeah.
I
think the issue is
Ashley Phillips is another one that maybe will go out on loan.
I think the issue is basically it's UEFA's rules. Premier League, it's fine. UEFA's, you've just got to try and work around it, which isn't really ideal, but it is what it is.
And it feels like it penalises association-trained players. I kind of feel like you should be able to have young association-trained players and them count on the separate list. It's almost like, oh yeah, you can sign players that play in England, but it's not really going to help you. I don't get that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they changed the rules probably 2 years ago, didn't they? Because Ben Davies, Matt Doherty, they were always down as foreign players.
Yeah.
But, Wales, Republic of Ireland, if you come through a club's academy there, now you can be classed as homegrown, which certainly helps. But yeah, a headache for us, and I'm sure a headache for Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham as well. We'll call it a day on today's latest episode of Golden Guest Tottenham. I think we'll be back later in the week. Bit of a season preview, really, and then also look ahead to next Monday's game against Leicester City. In the meantime, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.